The sun was unseasonably warm that morning, casting a golden glow over Patricia Silva's sprawling estate. Her garden bloomed with curated perfection, white peonies, trimmed hedges, lemon trees in porcelain planters. Everything about the place felt like a page torn from a luxury magazine. I arrived at exactly 12:58, not wanting to seem eager or rude. Punctuality, after all, was the last thing I still offered freely. Patricia greeted me at the gate with her signature smile, wide practiced hollow. "Serafina," she said, drawing out each syllable as though trying to remember if she was pleased to see me. "So glad you could make it." Before I could respond, she turned to greet a neighbor. Lorelei didn't look up. She sat under a lattice of vines with Mateo and two women I didn't recognize. When she finally acknowledged me, it was with a quick nod and a vague hand gesture to the empty chair farthest from the table's center. No happy Mother's Day, no hug, not even a hello. I walked quietly to my assigned spot, brushing invisible crumbs off the chair before sitting down. The brunch table was full. Patricia's friends from her bridge club, some cousins of Mateo's, a smattering of well-dressed people who all knew each other. Conversation swirled like champagne fizz jokes. I wasn't part of stories I didn't know. I smiled politely, folded my napkin, and stirred my iced tea with a lemon wedge I hadn't asked for. Then Lorelei stood. "We have something special for you, Patricia," she beamed. Mateo followed, holding a tiny box and an envelope. Patricia opened the velvet lid and gasped. Inside was a radiant cut diamond ring that shimmered even in the shade. The envelope revealed cruise tickets, 2 weeks through the Mediterranean first-class suite. "Oh, Lorelei," Patricia whispered, tearing up. "You shouldn't have. It's not too much for the woman who raised the love of my life," Lorelei said, embracing her tightly. Polite applause rippled through the table. Everyone smiled. Everyone except me. Mateo cleared his throat and turned toward me. "And now for Serafina." Lorelei handed me a small crumpled bag. Inside was a plastic flower dollar store quality and a card that simply read, "Happy Mother's Day." No signature, no note. I looked up. Lorelei was already talking again, her back to me. I folded the card neatly and slipped it into my purse next to my reading glasses and my silence. I didn't cry on the drive home. The silence in my car felt more honest than anything I'd heard at that table. No music, no calls, just the steady hum of the engine and the faint crinkle of that plastic flower shifting in the gift bag on the passenger seat. I didn't bring it inside. I left it in the car like you would a fast food wrapper or a receipt you didn't want to look at. The house welcomed me with its familiar stillness. I set down my purse, kicked off my shoes, and walked straight to the home office I hadn't used for anything serious in years. The room still smelled faintly of lemon oil and old paper. I flicked on the desk lamp and opened the drawer where I kept the records. Tax folders, bank statements labeled envelopes, all carefully filed by year. Harold used to tease me about being a human spreadsheet. He was right. I started with Lorelei. College. Tuition payments, dorm fees, textbooks, flights home. Every semester was accounted for. $42,000, not including the used Camry I bought her when the old one gave out. Next, wedding L&M, $51,000. The dress alone was $3,800, which she insisted was modest. The venue, catering, flowers, photographer, all handled by me. Patricia's family offered a wine subscription and a toast. Mortgage. The townhouse in Ridgeview Heights, too expensive for them at the time. I co-signed. When Mateo's business faltered, I quietly made 6 months of payments. No one ever asked how the bills got covered. They just stopped arriving. Then came the transfers. $5,000, here $12,000, there. Just until next quarter, Mom. We're tight this month, Mom. I was always the backup plan, always the safety net. I totaled the amounts, $607,800. That didn't include the little things. Grocery runs, emergency flights, the kids' Christmases. I stared at the final number on my calculator. $600,800. I'd given more to my daughter and her husband than I ever paid for my own home. The flower had cost them $5. I sat back in the chair, the plastic armrest suddenly cold against my skin, and reached for the next folder. The numbers stayed on the screen, but my eyes drifted past them, blurring into memory. I leaned back, letting the chair creak beneath me, and closed my eyes for a moment. It wasn't just the money. It never had been. Lorelei was always asking, "Can I go to the overnight field trip? Can I get these shoes? I need new graphing paper." And I always found a way. I worked weekends at the print shop after teaching all week. I picked up side gigs, editing grant proposals just to keep things comfortable. I said yes so many times I forgot what it felt like to say no. But I couldn't remember her ever saying thank you, not once in a way that felt real. Not a thank you, with weight with warmth, just assumptions like the sun rises, like dinner appears. The worst of it wasn't the taking. It was the moment I realized I was invisible. She was 15. I had taken the afternoon off from work, unpaid, to see her piano recital. I'd even had a new dress hemmed the night before, hoping to look like someone she could be proud of. I remember standing alone near the refreshment table afterward, holding 2 tiny paper cups of apple juice. That's when I heard her whisper to Patricia, "You just get me. Not thank you for coming, Mom." Not even a nod in my direction. Just that sentence wrapped around someone else. It landed harder than any teenage tantrum ever could. She said it like I didn't exist, like I hadn't scraped together tuition for those lessons, or sat beside her as she cried over missed notes. That was the day something inside me went quiet. Not angry, not bitter, just quiet. I stopped hoping to be seen. I focused on supporting her because that was something I knew how to do. It required no gratitude, no recognition, just consistency. You can do that on autopilot. But now, staring at that calculator, I wondered how long I had been coasting through motherhood as a silent benefactor rather than a loved one. And this time, I didn't want to be quiet. The text came in around noon the next day. "Hey, Mom, any chance we could use the Tahoe this weekend? Mateo's truck's acting up again." "Oh, and is the cabin free?" "Next month, we're thinking of doing a little anniversary trip. No greeting. No. How are you?" No mention of the flower or the brunch or whether I got home safely, just the usual rhythm of request and assumption. But this time, something in me shifted. My fingers hovered above the screen. Then, instead of typing the automatic, "Of course," I wrote, "I'll think about it." It was barely a sentence, but it had weight. More than I expected. I set the phone down and walked to the kitchen. I didn't even make it to the coffee pot before it rang. Lorelei. I let it buzz once, twice, then answered. "Hi. Are you okay?" She asked, the edge of suspicion already in her voice. "I'm fine," I said calmly. "You've never said, 'I'll think about it' before." "Well," I replied, reaching for the French press, "maybe I'm starting to think about things now." She went quiet. I could feel her assembling her next move, but I didn't wait for it. I said I had to go and hung up. That afternoon, I sat at my desk and stared at the framed photo of my first office. A converted storage unit with yellow walls and one flickering desk lamp. From that tiny room, I'd built DeWitt Solutions, 34 employees, 5 contracts across the western states, quiet success, no celebration. I picked up the phone again and dialed the number I hadn't used in nearly a year. "Franklin Chan," came the familiar voice. "It's Serafina," I said. He chuckled. "Well, this is a nice surprise. Everything all right?" I looked out the window at the driveway, where my Tahoe sat spotless and unused. "I want to discuss selling the company," I said. There was a pause on the line, the kind you hear when someone knows the conversation just changed course. "I'm listening," he said. And for the first time in a long time, I wanted someone to. I didn't start with anything loud. That was never my way. I began where the weight lived in the small things no one noticed unless they suddenly disappeared. First, I called the property manager for my commercial buildings and told him to start gathering bids from new landscaping companies. "Mateo Silva's rates are above market," I said plainly. "It's time we reevaluate." He didn't push back. He never does. I think he'd always known the contract was more about family obligation than merit. I sent a polite email to Mateo that same afternoon. In the coming quarter, we'll be reviewing all vendor relationships. No immediate changes, just transparency. It was the kind of language that sounded routine, but never failed to shake people like him. Next were Lorelei's clients, the 3 small firms I'd connected her with over the years, bookkeeping jobs handed to her when she needed something flexible. I called each one personally. I'll no longer be referring out financial admin services, I said. You'll want to transition within the next 60 days. No drama, just business. The fallout arrived faster than I expected. Lorelei called that evening, her voice tight but careful. Mom, I just got off the phone with Mrs. Halberd. She said you're pulling referrals. That's correct, I said, stirring a spoon through my tea. Why, she asked. Are you upset about the flower? I paused. No, Lorelei. This isn't about one flower. Then what is it about? I let the silence hold her for a moment. I'm reevaluating what I built and who it serves. She was quiet. Then she gave a soft, disbelieving laugh. Since when? Since I realized I've created a system that rewards dependence. Another pause. Longer this time. You're not mad? No, I said. I'm clear. She hung up not long after. I sat there at the kitchen table, tracing the rim of my cup with one finger. The flower was still in the car, baking gently in the dashboard sun. Tomorrow, I'd begin reviewing the internal contracts, the ones that bound me to them in silence. The call came just before noon. I was at Franklin's office, finalizing the second round of diligence reports, when my personal phone buzzed with an unknown number. Mrs. DeWitt, the voice asked. This is Morgan Lewis from Peregrine Partners. We're following up on yesterday's call regarding the Hartwell acquisition. Your assistant had a few questions about the valuation breakdown and post-sale transitions. I stopped him. I don't have an assistant. A pause. Well, someone answered your home line, a woman. She identified herself as your office liaison and said she had your permission. My stomach dropped. I didn't respond. I just grabbed my coat, nodded once to Franklin, and walked out. The drive home blurred into one long inhale. I pulled into the driveway faster than usual and let the car door slam itself shut. The front door was unlocked. In my office, Lorelei was sitting in my chair. My chair. The desk was scattered with papers, confidential projections, client rosters, offer letters, the non-disclosure agreement with Peregrine. She looked up as if she belonged there. What are you doing? I asked too quietly. She faltered. I was just, Mom, are you really selling the company? I walked over and began collecting the papers, stacking them in the order I had them filed. Yes, I said flatly, and you shouldn't be here. She stood. You didn't tell me. Or Mateo. You didn't tell anyone. That's the point. Her face flushed. But this affects us. I didn't look at her. That's exactly why I kept it private. Her voice trembled, equal parts desperation and disbelief. You can't do this without telling us first. I finally met her eyes. Lorelei, I can. I am. And you. I swept the last folder into my arms. Don't have permission to enter this house, let alone this office. She blinked. I was just trying to understand what's going on. I exhaled through my nose. You were trying to control it. I walked past her toward the door. We're done here. She didn't follow. I left her standing there, surrounded by things she had no right to touch. And by evening, the final terms were ready for my signature. Lorelei came back the next day, this time knocking before she entered. I didn't ask her in, but I didn't stop her either. She stood in the kitchen, like a guest in her childhood home, unsure of where to put her hands. I didn't mean to violate your space, she began. I was just scared. I motioned to the chair across from me. Then let's stop pretending this isn't about money. She didn't sit. I ran the numbers. I continued. Do you know how much I've given you and Mateo over the last 15 years? She opened her mouth, but no sound came. $607,800, I said. That's tuition, mortgage payments. The business loan Mateo never repaid, 3 vehicles, your wedding, every holiday and emergency. That doesn't include the bookkeeping referrals or Mateo's landscaping contracts, both of which I created and overpaid for. Mom, I'm still paying your mortgage. every month. Quietly, automatically. You never asked where the help was coming from. You just took it. Her face crumpled. We were struggling. So was I said. Not financially, emotionally. You never called just to talk. You never asked how I was doing after your father died. You never even remembered my birthday without a Facebook reminder. I didn't know. No, I said. You didn't care to know. Patricia got a $25,000 ring and a cruise because she listens to you, flatters you, makes you feel seen. I was the one who raised you, Lorelei, who built a life around you. And somehow I became the invisible one. Tears rolled down her cheeks now, but I stayed steady. I'd spent too many years giving in at the first sign of tears. Am I your mother, I asked, or your bank? She didn't answer. Couldn't. I'm not angry, I said, after a long silence. I'm awake. That's all. She stood there for a while longer, wiping her eyes with the sleeve of a sweater I recognized from high school. Then she turned and left the door, clicking shut behind her. That night, I lit a single candle in the kitchen and sat in the quiet waiting for the call I knew would come. The final contract came through just after 9. Franklin called to confirm the wire had landed. The documents were filed, and Hartwell Consulting, my life's work, was officially no longer mine. I thanked him. My voice didn't shake. I hung up the phone and stood in the middle of my office, looking around one last time. The plaques on the wall, the old stapler Harold gave me when I signed my first client. The bookshelf still held Lorelei's second-grade clay bowl, misshapen and pale blue. I didn't take it with me. By noon, Lorelei had called 8 times. By 2:15, the messages ranged from confusion to fury. By 5 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find her on the porch, red-eyed and breathless, with Matteo just behind her. He looked like he was trying to mask his panic with concern. He wasn't doing a very good job. Mom Lorelei said, stepping forward, "We need to talk." We talked. You're destroying everything Matteo cut in. Our family, your legacy. I'm not destroying it, I said calmly. I'm freeing it. You'll be okay now, right? You always said I was holding you back. We didn't mean it like this, Lorelei whispered. You meant it exactly like this. They stood there for a moment longer, as if expecting me to suddenly change my mind, offer a do-over. I didn't. I closed the door, not abruptly, just deliberately. That evening, I packed my final box. I'd already made arrangements for the house to be sold. The utilities were scheduled to shut off in 2 weeks. I had one more appointment with the moving company in the morning. I sat on the living room floor, surrounded by quiet and cardboard, and thought about everything. I wouldn't miss automatic drafts invoices under other people's names, the weight of pretending I didn't notice. I placed a single note on the entry table in case Lorelei came back. The key doesn't work anymore. Don't try. Then I slipped into bed, fully alone for the first time in years, and felt something I hadn't in just as long. Weightless. The next morning, I made coffee and opened a blank notebook. The cottage sat just far enough from town to feel like a secret. It wasn't grand, but it was mine. No echoes of obligation. No doors left open for someone else's comfort. I unpacked only what mattered: Harold's favorite books, a few black and white photographs, my mother's old quilt. Everything else had been sold, donated, or let go without ceremony. The day after I arrived, I called the bank and paid off the mortgage on Lorelei's house, the final act. I didn't tell her. It wasn't a gift. It was closure. Next, I met with Franklin to set up education trusts for Teddy and Mavis. The money would release when they turned 18, managed by a neutral third party. No parental access, no strings. A clean future untouched by their parents' dependency. That was my gift to them, freedom. Back at the cottage, I logged into my accounts one last time. Each automatic payment linked to Lorelei or Matteo Utilities insurance premiums, phone bills. A strangely recurring charge for Matteo's business website was canceled one by one. I deleted the saved transfers, cleared the reminders, erased their names from every drop-down menu. The silence afterward was unfamiliar. At first, I thought I'd feel grief, maybe even guilt, but all I felt was quiet. Pure, uncluttered quiet. I walked to the kitchen and brewed a small pot of tea. There was no schedule now, no invoices to chase, no calls to screen, just steam rising from the cup and the distant sound of lake water brushing the dock. I sat by the window and opened my notebook. The first page stayed blank for several minutes. Then I wrote, "Today I remembered how to breathe." Outside, the trees rustled like they were exhaling with me. The world felt softer, lighter. I hadn't heard from Lorelei since the night she left my doorstep in tears, and for the first time, I didn't reach for the phone. That evening, as the sun set in quiet layers of gold, the mail arrived at my front gate. One envelope, handwritten, no return address, just her name. The envelope was pale blue, creased at the corners, and addressed in Lorelei's handwriting, slightly neater than I remembered, like she had taken her time. I waited until after dinner to open it. The lake was quiet, the wind still. I read it slowly, each word sinking deeper than I expected. She wrote that she and Mateo had divorced 2 months ago, that the bankruptcy had wiped out more than their savings. She was working now at an elementary school part-time. She said the work was humbling, exhausting, and oddly fulfilling. I had to learn who I was, she wrote, without the money, the help, the fallback plan. She didn't ask for anything, not a loan, not another chance, not even a phone call. She wrote to say she was sorry for the years she assumed I'd always be there, sorry for not seeing me, sorry for giving her heart to Patricia because it felt easier. You weren't punishing me when you sold the company, she wrote. You were freeing both of us. I just didn't see it until I had nothing to hide behind. She ended the letter with, "I hope you're happy, Mom. I hope you found the peace you were looking for. You deserve it." And below that, a postscript. I kept the plastic flower. It's on my kitchen windowsill. It reminds me every day what I threw away. I folded the letter carefully and set it beside my tea. Later that night, I pulled out my notebook and wrote a reply. I told her I believed she meant it, that I was proud of her for finding a version of herself that didn't depend on me, that I missed her, but I was no longer waiting on her. But I didn't mail the letter. Some things, some spaces need time before they can hold the weight of truth. Some relationships need silence, distance air. I tucked my response into a drawer unsealed. Maybe one day I'll send it. Maybe she'll send another. For now, I watched the last sliver of sun melt into the lake. I was 66, and for the first time in decades, I was living my own life. It was enough.